Welcome to Loren Reads to You. Today, I am reading The Bedtime Killer by Loren Malloy. That's me! If you haven't heard chapter 1 through 7 yet, make sure you pause this, save this, go back, watch all of those, listen to all those, however, and then come back to this one, if you'd like. Otherwise, get comfy and let's get started. This is chapter 8. Horace cracked open a beer and then turned on his tiny tube television when he got home, wondering if he made the news again. Peeping-tom terrorizes neighborhood. News at 11. Fuck! Horace yelled and smashed his beer onto the floor. He didn't need this shit, he thought. Horace needed to calm down, so he laid down on his cot, closed his eyes, and with little Horace in hand, he reminisced about little Miss Barbie and her beautiful reaction to him. He wasn't happy that she called the police, but their relationship was brand new. It's understandable to be a little scared of a new love after having such a piece of crap for an ex-husband. Her fear was so delicious, so pure, the way she froze in place, the way her eyes widened, and so did her mouth. His mind went back to his fantasy of Chantel, her eyes huge and wide with fear. Little Horace exploded with excitement as intensely as he had all over Miss Barbie's petunias. Horace fell asleep with a looped montage of Mrs. Barbie's reactions to him. His fantasies of Chantel and Janet's red satin panties over and over again. Their faces flashed in his mind, their gasps, their wide eyes filled with fear, their lips parted, and of course, their mouths. Horace woke with a warm mess in his shorts, but a smile on his face. The vision of fearful eyes danced in his head as little Horace begged for another release. That night, Horace knew where he was going, and this time, he would remember every single detail of it. As he arrived to Janet Haberdasher's house, it began to pour. Horace didn't care. Janet wouldn't mind if her lover was wet. Wet, Horace chuckled darkly at the sexual implications. Horace walked in the dark, up the street to his lover's house. Through the pouring rain, he could see a few lights were on. That's good, he thought. She's definitely home. Horace heard a familiar sound through the rain. It was the sound of a garage door opening. Sure enough, Horace watched from the edge of Janet's property as the lights were being systematically turned off. Soon the house was dark, and the only light that was now glowing was coming from the garage. He could hear the start of an engine. Horace watched as Janet and her husband got into his car and pulled down the driveway. He wound up being only several feet away from the husband's car door. He could see they were both all dressed up. Janet had her visor down, and the light from it showed her beautiful face as she applied her lipstick. Moments later, they pulled away, and Horace was left standing in the rain, in the dark, amongst the trees they had planted at their property's border. No, not again, he thought. Well, at least I can spend alone time with her things again. This time, he would just have to be neater. That must be what upset his lover, Janet. So much to call the cops. She was such a tidy woman. She must have been upset with the mess he left. She'll see. I'll be tidier this time. The red satin panties were in his pocket. He patted the pocket with them and smiled. He knew that must have been another reason she was so mad as to call the police. She loved those panties as much as he did. After all, he broke up a matching set, didn't he? Women hate that. He'll put them in her hamper, and soon the problem will be gone and they'll be happily in love once more. He could fix it easily, right? Couples fight after all, right? He went to the backyard and began checking windows. There's always one that was open. No luck. Stupid husband probably made sure they were closed after the police was there. All because of some misunderstandings. Horace shook his head, annoyed. He looked up and saw it. A window on the second story was open. Awesome, Horace thought. Now, how to reach it? He looked over and began laughing out loud, so loudly. Standing in the dark, he just couldn't care if anyone heard him over the pouring sound of the rain. They locked all the windows and doors on the first floor, but left a window wide open on the second floor, with a ladder not even 5 feet away. It was still propped up against the house. Horace laughed so hard and was so loud about it, it sounded like a dying mule with emphysema. Once he caught his breath, he moved the ladder to the open window. Horace chuckled about the ridiculousness of leaving a ladder right there for another moment before climbing it. "Thanks for the help," Horace said as he climbed. Completely dripping from head to toe, Horace stood looking around in the dark room. It was a game room. A card table was on one side, a chess set was adjacent to it on the other. A dartboard was against the opposite wall, and there in the corner was a bar. The smell of a cigar clung to the air. No wonder the window was open. Horace felt nervous. He told himself everyone got nervous on dates, but he knew he could really use a drink to calm his nerves down anyway. Horace went to the bar and picked up a clear glass bottle with some very dark liquid inside and took a very large sip of it. It was bourbon. He liked bourbon. He kept drinking it as he walked around Janet's house. This time he was going to see everything she had, and he wouldn't forget it. In no time at all, he was in her bedroom. He decided he'd better put her panties in the hamper before he forgot. As he opened the hamper, he got a flashback to the first time he did so. It didn't take long before he was reenacting what he did the last time he was there, but this time he did so with only her dirty panties. Horace went through her hamper and found several pairs of her undies. He saw a picture of her on the makeup table next to the hamper. The combo was all little Horace needed. He made sure he aimed all over the hamper just in case any of little Horace's excitement didn't land solely in her previously worn panties. After a while, he was exhausted and decided it was time to leave. Horace carried the almost empty glass bottle downstairs with him. On the first floor landing, up on the wall, there was a picture of Janet from some tropical vacation. She was so beautiful. That long brown hair, those almond-shaped chocolate brown eyes, and pouty pink lips. That hot body of hers in that sexy and revealing cocktail dress. She was pretty as a picture. Thank goodness for the massive planter on the landing, otherwise little Horace would have made a mess all over that floor. He couldn't help it. Being in her private domain like that, being so close and intimate like this with her, was exciting little Horace beyond control. Horace was quite drunk at this point and staggered to the garage door. He tipped the bottle back and drank the last drops from the bottle. He almost walked out with it. He thought in his drunken haze that Janet would be very upset again if he took it, and was just about to put it back down, but thought she would be so upset about leaving an empty bottle around, so Horace staggered back to her kitchen and put it in the sink. He then went back to the garage door. Horace turned the lock on the door before pulling it closed behind him. He tried it and made sure it was locked before walking out to the backyard through the garage. Horace walked back to where the ladder was and moved it back 5 or so feet before walking back to his truck. He was so proud of himself. He was neat and tidy this time. Even put the bottle in the sink and the ladder back where it was. Janet would be so pleased with him this time. Horace fell asleep with a huge smile on his face that night. It was so wonderful to be able to be so close and so intimate with his lady. Next time, he was sure she would be able to be home for their date, and she would give him those fearful eyes he desired. That was Chapter 8 of The Bedtime Killer by Loren Malloy. That's me. If you're enjoying this story, you can get it through paperback and Kindle on Amazon. Make sure you're following and subscribing wherever you're watching or seeing this. And let's get into Chapter 9.